Chevy Chase's last appearance on Saturday Night Live was on February 15, 1997. He was banned for good by the end of that night. In the beginning, he hit a female group member, then they said sexual things. That wasn't even his worst moment. When he showed up, cast members started leaving. Directors wouldn't let him work with them. One quit directing Christmas Vacation just to stay away from him. In 2018, a kid hit him on the highway and had no idea who he was. The guy who always made people laugh stopped being cool to be around. Chevy Chase was born on October 8, 1943, as Cornelius Crane Chase. As soon as he got there, he was surrounded by power and money. He had a direct link to the famous Vanderbilt family because his adopted grandfather was Cornelius Vanderbilt Crane. Through trains and shipping in the 1800s, that family made a lot of money and became one of the most famous and powerful in America. These things meant that Chase grew up in a wealthy, powerful, and well-known family. Even with all the shine, his personal life would soon reveal a very different truth. Even though he smiled on stage later in life, his youth problems and pain told a much darker story. His name Chevy came from a source that has nothing to do with American trains. The Ballad of Chevy Chase, a story from the 1400s about a fierce battle between English and Scottish troops, made his grandmother choose it. In that famous border fight, the Douglas line fought. They were Chase's relatives, it turned out. The song became so well known that it gave rise to a neighborhood outside of Washington, D.C. called Chevy Chase. By calling him Chevy, his grandma linked him to a long history of bravery and strength. His family had a proud Scottish background that the name stood for, so it was more than just a cool nickname. Life wasn't as perfect as it seemed on the outside of that rich world. Chase was only 4 years old when his parents split up. What should have been a safe house was no longer safe. It got even worse. His mother and husband abused him. They would hit him and lock him in closets for hours. What they did hurt them deeply. He was only known as a funny star, so fans were shocked to learn this. In interviews and his memoirs, Chase talked freely about the trauma. That pain followed him into adulthood and changed the way he interacted with other people. It showed that even having a lot of money can hide terrible pain. Also, school was a mix of smart people and chaos. Chase went to some of the best schools like New York's Riverdale Country School, but he was often kicked out for bad behavior. He later became valedictorian at the Stockbridge School, but he was still a bit of a rebel. He pulled a joke at Haverford College that was so crazy that it became myth at the school. He was kicked out because he had a cow in his college room. There was some trouble with every victory. This carefree and rebellious spirit was already a part of his humor. Years later on TV, before comedy took over his life, he was first interested in music. Chase was in a jazz group at Bard College called Leather Canary and played drums and keyboards. His partners Donald Fagen and Walter Becker would go on to form Steely Dan. Chase was smart and clever even back then. Leather Canary had style and a lot of energy, and playing with rock stars of the future helped him learn timing and beat. He would become one of the best comics in America thanks to his sense of rhythm. In 1967, Chase was a member of Channel One, a bold new comic group in New York. They weren't putting on typical skits. Instead, they showed short, funny videos on several TVs in their small theater on East 60th Street. Funny things on Channel One were often rude, sarcastic, and angry. There wasn't much funny at the time, but this one did something new. The most famous Channel One sketches were put together into a movie called The Groove Tube in 1974. Co-founder Ken Shapiro directed it. The movie made over $9 million, even though it only cost $200,000. One fake news desk piece gave Chase's famous Weekend Update on Saturday Night Live a lot of ideas. Chase started the National Lampoon Radio Hour in 1973, a few years before he joined SNL. The radio show ran every week and had some of the best comedians of the time on it, such as John Belushi, Gilda Radner, Bill Murray, Christopher Guest, and Harold Ramis. For years, their sharp, fast entertainment changed the way Americans laugh. The show was shortened to 13 episodes because it moved too slowly, but almost all of its actors were hired for Saturday Night Live and Chase was the star. Back in the same year he co-wrote and acted in Lemmings, an off-Broadway hit by National Lampoon. The show made fun of Woodstock by reimagining it as Woodchuck, 3 Days of Peace, Love and Death. Chase sang and played the drums. John Belushi, Christopher Guest and the rest of the group made fun of rock stars like Bob Dylan and John Denver. It got great reviews. The show's funny parodies of the rock scene were praised by Time magazine, and the show's catchy songs were later put out on DVD. Chase was writing humor for Mad magazine before most people knew his face. He made fun of Mission Impossible in 1970 and wrote and drew a one-page comic about it. Millions of copies of that issue were sold. It was big to be a part of. People like Charles Schulz and Andy Griffith wrote for the magazine, which was at its best. It was an honor to have your work published there and even the chance to go on Mad's famous trip for top writers. In the spring of 1975 it rained all night. At the time Chevy Chase wasn't very well known. He was waiting in line at the Paramount Theater for the opening of Monty Python and the Holy Grail. He was the center of attention at the Los Angeles Film Festival. He chose to make people laugh, which was what he did best. He told jokes and did acts for the people there. A Canadian director, Lorne Michaels, was nearby looking for people to be on a new late-night comedy show. Chase suddenly slipped and fell into a hole, landing in a big puddle. He kept laughing, even though water was dripping off of him. Dick Ebersol, who works for NBC, saw this. Michael asked, "Could you say no to someone so crazy as to do that?" Michaels asked Chase to meet him at the Chateau Marmont. He got a job as a writer and actor on a new show that would later become Saturday Night Live because of that rainy day. Chase was chosen to host the fake news piece when SNL first started on October 11, 1975. Chase put his own spin on the new idea. He told the Newsweek after week on Weekend Update with a serious face and funny words. "I'm Chevy Chase and you're not," became a popular phrase very quickly. People still wear it on their shirts after all these years. Chase took real news stories and made them seem silly. He made fun of important topics with jokes like Generalissimo Francisco Franco is still dead. Anyone who saw him end a section with "good night" or "have a nice day tomorrow" felt like they knew what was going on. During that season, Chase also became famous for how he played President Gerald Ford. Ford slipped as he got off Air Force One in Salzburg, Austria, on June 1, 1975. Chase made fun of that situation. Chase began to play Ford as a clumsy president who tripped over everything on SNL's fourth show, which aired on November 8, 1975. Chase would bump into furniture, hit his head, and then jump up and say, no problem," every time Ford came on stage. Chase never tried to sound like Ford. Instead, he played him like they were always fall down. Ford himself laughed at the sketches, but they made people think of him as a bad president for all time. Everyone could see how talented Chase was. 2 Primetime Emmys were given to him in 1976, after only one season. One was for writing and the other was for singing. He won a Golden Globe for writing too. In 1975, New York Magazine named him the funniest person in the United States. Even NBC gave him a hint that he might one day serve as a guest host on The Tonight Show by Johnny Carson. Later, Rolling Stone said that Chase was one of the 10 most important people on SNL because he changed the style and humor of the show in just one season. But Chase chose to leave SNL after all of this success. The last time we saw him was on October 30, 1976. He was the first actor to ever quit. A lot of people were confused about why someone would give up so quickly after putting up so much. Chase joked that it was because of money. A lot of money, but it was really about something more personal. He loved actress Jacqueline Carlin very much. Chase said, "I left for a girl I loved who wouldn't leave California." Chevy Chase became a movie star very quickly. In 1978, he was in the comedy thriller Foul Play with Goldie Hawn. It was his very first major part. Chase was on Saturday Night Live just 2 years ago, but this movie changed everything. Foul Play was a huge hit. Back then that was a lot of money, more than $44 million. 7 Golden Globes were also given to the movie. Chase was in the running for Best Performance. It was a sudden and surprise rise. The movie had both funny and scary parts, and it followed a crazy plan to kill the Pope. There were different kinds of critics, but everyone agreed on one thing. Chase was a star from the start. A funny man with a lot of charm. In a strange turn of events, Chase turned down a part in Animal House to commit murder. Move that changed the course of his career for good. The movie was so well liked that it even spawned a short-lived TV show in 1981. People all over the world knew him from the movie Foul Play, which was the right start to a decade of comedy hits. People were beginning to see a tougher side of Chevy Chase behind the scenes though. Chase played the cool and carefree golfer Ty Webb in the 1980 movie Caddyshack. He almost didn't make the movie at all. Chase was the first person the company thought of when they wanted a big star to lead the movie. It made almost $40 million in the US alone, even though it cost $6 million to make. The movie was crazy and wild, just like the people in it. Chase had the right smooth style and quick one-liners. Even though it got mixed reviews at first, Caddyshack went on to become one of the most famous comedies of all time. Chase scenes with Bill Murray were made up on the spot and were very funny. Harold Ramis's first movie as a director, the movie also helped start a new style of comedy. Chase was the only major actor who came back for Caddyshack 2, which came out in 1988. People still quote from the movie, and Ty Webb is thought to be one of the most memorable figures in comedy. By 1983, Chase had played Clark Griswold in National Lampoon's Vacation, which was one of his most well-known parts. The movie made more than $61 million. It was based on a story by John Hughes. Chase played a dad who just wanted to take a great trip with his family. It was a joke that everything went wrong. People loved Clark's awkward but well-intentioned style. The character was so well-liked that 4 more movies with them were made, including Christmas Vacation 1989, which made $71 million. The series made more than $322 million altogether. People still laugh at Clark Griswold and his mess-ups after 40 years. People all over the world watched the movies, and Chase showed that he could make the same character funny over and over again. Chase was making $7 million for each movie by the late 1980s, which is about $15 million today. He was now in the same league as Hollywood's biggest action and drama stars. He had a lot of power because of his roles in movies like Fletch and Christmas Vacation. Studios knew that his name would bring in people, so they also gave him artistic freedom. But at the same time, his notoriety for being hard to get along with began to grow. Chase was difficult to work with on set, and they often got into fights over money and plots. People talked about his big ego as much as they talked about his jokes. It was a strange difference. He was making people laugh, but people behind the scenes didn't always laugh with him.